Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the secret and hidden world of Sylvan Glade, which is a world that we got from the Sims 4 base game, although it's a little bit hidden. You have to go through a series of different things to be able to gain access to this world, but don't worry, I will explain it all and I'll let you know how to get here. But I'm going to be building a Sylvan Glade treehouse. So this lot ends up having 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom, and it's built on a 20 by 15 lot. Now first things first, I do just want to say the footage that you're watching is very pink. Now, I don't want you thinking that I've put some sort of like filter on my video. I don't do that. I do have a reshape, but the amount of pinkness is purely from this magical world, because where I'm building, it's meant to be a little bit of like a hidden treasure dug within the Sims 4 base game. And so by default, whenever you visit this world, the lighting is just very pink and it's just very magical and it's really pretty. And so I don't want you thinking, hang on, what have you done to this footage? No, I've just built it like that. That is literally in-game footage that you're seeing right now. But this week, I thought it would be really fun to sit down and build something in the world of Sylvan Glade. Now, I was kind of inspired by a comment that I got left on my last week's video. If you didn't catch it, I built a hobbit hole, which funnily enough, that video was also inspired by a comment that someone left the week beforehand. And so 2 weeks in a row, I've been doing builds that you guys have kind of like suggested or recommended or just even spoken about in the comments. And so, yeah, if you've got any ideas, please do let me know, because I'm getting very inspired by your ideas and thoughts recently. But someone said, am I going to be building in the world of Sylvan Glade for my save file? And I have been planning on it, but I just ain't got around to doing it. And so I thought, well, this week, let's just do that. Let's just build a magical tree house in this little secret, forgotten about world. And yeah, that is exactly what I did. And so I really hope you guys like it. But anyway, moving on from that and getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So like I said, I'm building in the world of Sylvan Glade, which is a base game only world. So if you're someone that has never bought an expansion pack, you've never bought a game pack, you've never bought a kit or just pretty much any sort of paid DLC, and you only have the Sims 4 base game, you do still have this little secret world in your game. You just might have not known about it until maybe right now. I'm not too sure. I don't know how much you played the game. I don't know how much you explored, but there is little secret worlds in The Sims 4, and yeah, this is one of them. Like I said, I will tell you the whole entire process. I'll talk you through it, exactly how to find it and exactly how to gain access to it. But basically, by default, whenever you load into any sort of neighbourhood in the game, whether it be a secret neighbourhood, whether it be just down the pub in Willow Creek or something, you always have to load into a lot. You can't just load into an empty map. Now, by default, when you load into this world, I will say it looks like there's nothing here, but it's just the way that the Sims team kind of designed this neighbourhood. So when you load into this little like secret hidden world, by default, there'll be like a little circular fishing pond. It's one of the ones that your Sims can fish in, but then they can also look for frogs in. Don't get me wrong, lovely idea, and it is very pretty to look at. But it's a bit wasted potential, because the thing is, in the neighbourhood of Sylvan Glade, there is already some fishing spots, but then also some spots where your Sims can look for frogs. And so to me, the one gameplay thing tied to the lot is stuff that's already in the environment. And so to me, it just feels a little bit pointless. And so I thought, well, why don't I sit down and build something that gives your Sims a little bit more encouragement to come and find and come and visit. But the thing is, where this is kind of like I want to say like a special lot type, your Sims can't live here full times. Technically, you can, and I've definitely had Sims in the past that have stayed here and not gone home and just slept in a tent. But on paper, when you visit this world, your Sims can't buy this house. Like, they can't get a mortgage on it. Your Sims just, if they don't want to, they don't have to leave. And so I was thinking, well, I shouldn't really build a house that someone lives in, because for gameplay purposes, it's not going to make any sense. Because if your Sims do actually visit here, no one's going to be here. They're going to be on their own. And so I was thinking, well, why don't I make it so this tree house, which I actually just tried to make look like it's built into the tree, but in The Sims 4 can't really do that, and so this is my version of a house in a tree. But why don't I make it so maybe someone used to live here, maybe they had some sort of magic powers, or maybe they was just like a regular person that just liked living out in the woods by themselves. But why don't I make it so it's kind of overgrown on the inside, and it's almost like a little bit of a forgotten house, because this way I could then make it so if you did want to, your Sims could technically just live here full time. You just get them to visit this secret world and just never go home, you know. Instead of having them live in a tent or just sleep by the water, they could just sleep in this treehouse. But yeah, the way that I decorated it on the inside, I tried to make it look like it had just been left over time. And so I placed down so many different ivies coming from the floor. I placed down vines hanging from the ceiling, and like I placed down stuff that looks like it's growing out from the outside into the inside. You can see that by this point I've already placed down some windows, and currently I have like 3 or 4 different windows placed down where they've got like a little shutter that's open. Them windows don't have any glass in, and so what I did when I was decorating it, I placed down some ivy on both the exterior, but then I made it look like the ivy and the vines and all these different like magical shrubs were growing from the outside, and they were kind of like growing onto the inside of this house. It looked so magical, and it just looked so honestly different to anything that I've ever built before. It was so much fun to do. I also placed down like tree trunks into the roof line to make it look like this house is built into the tree, and the roots or like branches of the trees kind of like wrapping around all these different pieces of roofing. But yeah, on the inside, if you're curious, your Sims can still technically live here, but it's just very overgrown and just very forgotten about. But it was just so much fun to decorate. Also, I feel like this is probably a really good time to mention that I have play tested this build. Like always, I playtest every single one of my builds before I sit down and do the voiceover, just in case there's anything that I might need to tell you about, or, you know, something might not work or something. But yeah, no, I have playtested this whole entire build. I run into like 1 or 2 minor little problems, but nothing too groundbreaking. Most of the time, it was just a case of something was a little bit too close to another object, and Sims get a little bit touchy, don't they? And so like, it wouldn't work or whatever. But there is one thing that I did want to mention, which I'm just about to start doing, and it is create like a little fake front door entrance into the tree trunk. This doesn't work, but I feel like it's probably a bit of a given because I'm just placing down a random door into a trunk. I just wanted it to feel a little bit magical. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wanted it to feel like this was a house in a tree. And normally when you go on Pinterest, or if you see pictures of this kind of thing, there'd normally be like a little front door in like the log or like the stub of the tree. And just for the Sims 4 and the way it works, I couldn't do that. But your Sims can still get in the inside. It's just got to go around back. This is just purely for decoration, but I just thought it looked really cute. But yeah, that is pretty much the one thing that doesn't work in this whole entire build, is that front door. But like I said, it's a bit of a given. I didn't even place down a wall behind it. It's just purely for decoration. But anyway, moving on from that and getting on and actually telling you how you gain access to this secret world. So like I said, it's a base game world. So even if you've only got the Sims 4 base game, you ain't got any other packs, you've still got this world in your game. What you do is you start off by going to the world of Willow Creek and starting off in the neighbourhood which is called Fondry Cove. If you're not familiar with the neighbourhood names, to be honest, I've only recently learned it myself, but you know the BFF household, that neighbourhood where they live, go to that area, because at the very back of it, in kind of like the back corner, there is this magical tree. Funnily enough, the tree just so happens to be kind of on the left hand side of where I'm recording, and as I'm placing down like these landscaping items like bushes and all these different vines, you might be able to catch a glimpse of what it looks like. But just in case it's a little bit too quick for you, I will pop a picture of this magical tree on the screen right now, so you can kind of get a general gist of what you're looking at. Not gonna lie, it does kind of stick out like a sore thumb, so I don't feel like it's gonna be too hard to identify. But you go up to this tree and you have the interaction to view it. Now, what you basically do is you get your Sims to view this tree a few different times, and then eventually, as you kind of like progress through viewing this tree, more interactions will kind of unlock. You then water the tree. You can then compliment it on its leaves, chat to it about its roots. Which is quite funny. But then also, eventually, a little hole will appear in the tree trunk, and it's a black hole. And you would then have the option to explore the tree. Now, don't worry about getting a pen and paper, because I will also be writing this in the description, because I'm aware that if you've never done this before, it might be a little bit overwhelming to have all these different instructions. Yeah, don't worry, I will put it in the description box down below, so you can kind of refer back to it. Also, kind of interrupting myself here quickly, I just placed down that magical well, which is one of the things I wanted to include on this lot. You can see I've placed it down by the ladder. It's one of them things that kind of gives your Sims a little bit of a push to visit this world, because the magical well that I've just placed down, your Sims can like wish for children, or they can wish for money, or wish for a better career, and just all these different things. And to me, I felt like it belonged in this world. And so, yeah, you would have just seen that I popped down a little magical well. But anyway, getting back to it. So you explore through the tree, your Sims will disappear into the tree trunk. And then there is a series of different pop-ups that appear, and you basically have to click the right one in order to gain access to this world. Now, I'm not going to tell you both options that will come up, because basically, if you click the wrong one, then your Sims have to go back to the start, and it's a bit of a faff, and it's a bit long-winded sometimes. And so I'm only going to tell you the right one to click. But when the first little pop-up comes up, press follow the sound, and then eventually another one will come up, and then press travel downstream. and then eventually another one will come up and it says enter the mist. Press that one, and then the next one that will come up will be travel to the glade, and that is the last option, and then all of a sudden you're in this magical world. Now, like I said, when you first enter this world by default, if you've never been here before, there will just be a fishing pond on the lot that I'm building on. So you see where like the white border is around the lot? This is where the fishing pond will be. It's a big circular one, you can't really miss it, but if you do fancy deleting it and replacing it with maybe this treehouse, maybe another build, maybe you want to build here yourself, the way that you then place down a lot, you have to go through, I think it's 2 different cheats, because by default it's locked, so you're not meant to be able to build here, but it's The Sims 4, there's going to be a cheat code for it, do you know what I mean? So the way that you do it, I always open up the cheat console, can't remember what that is, I have just muscle memory, hang on, Control-Shift-C, yeah, Control-Shift-C, I was doing that with my fingers, but Control-Shift-C, and then type in testing cheats true. Now I will say, there is a slight possibility that you might not even have to type in that first cheat, like testing cheats true. Gotta say that slow because it's a proper tongue twister, that one, but you might not have to type it in, but basically there is a number of different cheats that we've got in The Sims 4 where to activate them you have to type in that cheat code to start off with, and so now no matter what the cheat that I'm typing in, I always put testing cheats true on, just to save me having to rewrite the same cheat over and over again. So I always pop it on. You might not have to, but just to be on the safe side, I always do. But then once you've typed in testing cheats true, you then type in bb.enable free build on. Again, I feel like the on bit is optional, which sounds silly, but I think the bb.enable free build cheat also works if you don't include the word on. I always do, because I'm pretty sure in The Sims 3 or The Sims 2 that was a cheat code at one point, and just because I'm a creature of habit, I've just never changed it, so I always just add in the little extra on bit. But yeah, you type in them 2 cheats and then all of a sudden you can then build on this lot. And yeah, like I said, if you fancy, you can download this build from the gallery if you like the look of it, or maybe if you've seen something else that you prefer, you can pop that down from the gallery, or if you want to, you can also just build here yourself. Like honestly, you can do whatever you want once you've enabled them cheats. If you wanted to, you could just leave it as is and maybe add a few different plants scattered about or something. But yeah, that is basically how you build on this little secret lot. I just wanted to build something that gave your Sims a little bit more purpose to visit here. That's why I mentioned about the wishing well that I placed down to the back garden. It's from the Romantic Garden stuff pack, but where we got it from a stuff pack DLC and not like an expansion pack or a game pack, it's not in the world already. You kind of have to place it down, and I just feel like with all the different magical things that you can ask for from it, like kids, money, success, I think potentially even fame or something, but with all the different things you can ask it, at the end of the day, if you're putting a quid in a well and it's going to give you something, that's quite magical to me. And so I felt like it's kind of a magical world, why not place it down here? And so yeah, I just tried to have this build include some things that your Sims might not regularly run into in their day-to-day gameplay. You'll see it on the inside as well. I end up placing down some quite magical things. I placed down a seance table that we got from the Paranormal Stuff pack. I also placed down a cauldron, which you wait till you see the cauldron area. I am so happy with the way that area turned out, because that is when I started incorporating all the different vines and all the different like ivy growing onto the inside. But I placed it around the cauldron and it just looks so fantasy, like it just looks like something out of like a fantasy book or like a fantasy film or something. But also on the exterior of the build, I'm very much aware I spoke over the main part of me actually building it and landscaping it. I'm so sorry, but in the actual garden areas, I also did place down 2 different planters and then also some bunny rabbit holes. And so if your Sims do eventually visit the world of Sylvan Glade, there's going to be little bunny rabbits hopping about in the world, which I think is just so fitting for this neighbourhood, because it is very magical and it's very cutesy. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside of the build. I'm currently coming in and figuring out how the front door entrance is going to look. Now, going back to the whole idea that I had around this build, I loved the idea of where your Sims can't technically live here. Like in gameplay, your Sims, unfortunately, they cannot buy this house, they can just visit it and just never leave. I had the idea of, okay, well, for gameplay purposes, for storytelling purposes, it might be really nice if it's this abandoned treehouse in this secret world of Sylvan Glade that someone did used to live in, but for some reason, and I don't know why, but for some reason one day they had to do a runner, and they left their whole entire house and the majority of their belongings behind. And so the way that I decorated it, I didn't want it to be like a trashed teenager hangout, because I have previously, I don't know if you would have seen it, but I built a Windenburg castle in the world of, well, Windenburg, which is a bit of a given, but I built a Windenburg castle on the Castle Ruins lot type, and in my own personal gameplay experience, my Sims always get invited to that area because there's always a party happening, and I thought for gameplay for my save file, it might be really fun to make it into some sort of abandoned castle that has now been turned into a teenager hangout. For this one, your Sims won't get invited here. For like the Windenburg castle, your Sims might get a phone call one day saying, oh, there's a mad party happening right now down at the Bluffs. Do you want to come? And it kind of like prompts your Sims to actively visit there. Whereas this one, your Sims will never get a phone call. I say that actually, I can never say never. I've never got a phone call. Maybe you've got something happening in your game that I don't have in my game. But I've never received a phone call asking my Sim to come and visit this secret world. And so to me, the only kind of Sims that would ever discover this area are going to be explorers. And so the approach that I had onto the inside is, okay, well, this used to be someone's house, this used to be someone's stuff. They did a runner one day, and now over time, through all the different years, the outside of this treehouse has started to kind of like climb in to the inside, and that is why there is so many different piles of ivy and there's so many different vines hanging off the ceilings and stuff, because it's almost like the environment is trying to, and it's going to sound really cheesy, but kind of like claim it back in a way. Now I know right now you're probably looking at this thinking, hang on, this is not ivy, this is not vine, this is not overgrownness. I'll do it in a second. Basically what happened is I came in, I figured out how I wanted the front door areas to roughly look, and then I was like, okay, I need to do the kitchen so I get a general gist of the interior style that I'm going to go for. And then once I did the kitchen, I then moved on to place down the cauldron, and that's when I placed down all these different vines and ivy and stuff. It's very much a trust the process situation, but yeah, in the end it ends up just looking so overgrown and just so magical and fantasy. But by the front door, I don't know if you would have seen, I placed down a bag on one side, like some binoculars, and then also what I was thinking would be like a treasure map or like a secret map to kind of discover this treehouse. But then I also placed down on the other side, and feel free to delete it, but I also placed down a mouse hole as well as a mouse trap. Now, the mouse hole is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, and in gameplay, a little mouse will come out. If it annoys you, just delete it. It's on the left-hand side. But then in front of it, I placed down a trap, which in real life, please don't do that, because that's horrible. But in The Sims 4, for realism purposes, it made sense. But then also in front of it, I placed down some poo, literal poo. Don't worry, I will get on and talk about what I'm doing right now, because I do actually want to speak about this, but I needed to explain it because I placed down some poo by the front door. We got it from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, and I thought, for reason purposes, over time, a mouse lives here now. The person that used to live here, they've done a runner, but there is a mouse that now takes residence in this tree, and I thought it'd be really funny to have some mouse droplets outside of their little house. But then when I was playtesting, I was taking the screenshots, the poo started to smell. Does make sense, and so I did decide to delete it. But I wanted to mention it just in case you managed to catch it. There is no longer poo by the front door because it was stinking the place out. But anyway, regardless, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the kitchen. So in here, the lighting that comes through from this big stained glass window is just so It's just so beautiful. The windows that I've used, by the way, they are from the Wedding Stories game pack, but you can find them in the medium wall height for that window anyway. I used it a few different times in this build, but currently in the kitchen, you see that I've placed down 2 kitchen counters. The ones that I've used are from the Cottage Living expansion pack. And then I placed down some shelving units. I placed down some different herbal remedies that your Sims can make on the barbecue grill on the shelves. And then I tried to tilt one of the shelves to make it look like it's fallen over time. But over here, I am doing something which I am so proud of this idea. And it is to make it look like there is a pot of potatoes boiling on the stove. Now, I was so proud of this idea because I basically had the idea in my head that the Sim that used to live in this treehouse, the Sim that used to take residence here, they was maybe researching into something that they maybe shouldn't have been researching into, or maybe they were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, and maybe someone was out to get them, and they had to one day just randomly do a runner, literally just up and leave their treehouse, leave all their belongings, and beforehand, before this person was coming to get them, they were baking some potatoes. Maybe they were having a roast dinner. Maybe they were having some roasties. I personally, whenever I cook roast potatoes, I always do them in the oven, but everyone's got their own preference. Maybe this sim likes to do them on the hob. And so you would have seen, I placed down this pot which we got from the Horse Ranch expansion pack. I then found some potatoes that your sims will, grow in their garden or something, but I sized them up a little bit. And then I got some seaweed as well, and I put it inside of the pot alongside with the potatoes. And to me, it just looked like someone's boiling some potatoes. And then I had this idea of merging in a bucket that's got some water in it to make it look like the potatoes have been left in the water, and over time the seaweed is maybe nastiness. I don't know what it's called. It's like the roots of it, but sometimes when you buy like a packet of jacket potatoes or something and you forget about them and they kind of like grow all these different like parts on the potatoes. I was thinking the seaweed from the water was maybe that, but unfortunately when it came around to playtesting, the bucket that I placed down inside of the pot with the water in made it so the oven wasn't functional. All I did is remove the bucket inside of the pot. I kept the potatoes and the seaweed, and yeah, then I was able to be functional. But I loved the initial idea of having like this little pot of water with boiling potatoes, and they've grown like roots over time, and it just felt so realistic to me, like someone literally has had to up and leave in a very quick instance in this treehouse. And yeah, they were just boiling some potatoes or something. But in here as well, as you can see, I also ended up placing down some potions onto the kitchen side. I placed down a fridge in the corner. The fridge that I've used is from the Cottage Living expansion pack. It kind of goes hand in hand with the kitchen cabinets. It's like the same wood tone, but on one side of the room I placed down this barrel. We got it from the Horse Ranch DLC, and it kind of looks like it's rusted over time. I popped down a debug chair next to it, and then also placed down some more potatoes that look like they're coming out of like a box or like a sack or something, but you'll see shortly. I do actually revisit the kitchen area because currently I'm now coming in and I've just placed down the cauldron, and this cauldron is where it starts to get very overgrown, and you'll see how it kind of like evolves over time. But I placed down the cauldron that we got from the Realm of Magic game pack, and then I started placing down these vines that we got from the Jungle Adventure DLC. You can find them in, I think, the debug menu, but then also the live edit menu. I think there's an option in both categories, but I started placing these down, and pretty much this is where the overgrownness, or like where the outside almost starts coming in to this tree house. So the vines, you can see, are kind of like draped over the cauldron. If you're curious, the cauldron still works, by the way. I didn't have a spellcaster sim playtest it, but I got a normal sim to make mac and cheese, and that was absolutely fun. But I placed down these vines hanging above it. I placed down some Cottage Living ivy onto the walls, and then you see them like twirly vine things that I placed down onto the floor. I think I placed down 2 normal sized ones either side, and then 1 really big one at the back. I will just say, when I was playtesting, my sim was absolutely petrified, because basically they are from the Paranormal Stuff pack, and they're meant to be some like haunted, oogly boogly kind of objects. Like if that appears in your house, do a runner kind of thing. And so if your sims are absolutely petrified, you might want to delete them. Also, I placed down some goo underneath the cauldron itself. Again, that is from the Paranormal Stuff pack, and again, it also does contribute to your sims basically pooing their pants. I don't know how else to say it, but your sims, they are, yeah, you might want to bring a spare pair of underwear, because my place is a sim bear, so she was absolutely petrified when I was getting her to playtest it. But I loved it though, because I loved the idea for storytelling purposes. Like, your sims are an explorer. They finally found this treasure map for the Sylvan Glade, and they've come across this treehouse, and they've come inside of it, and they wish that they didn't, because it's just so haunted in here. And then I got the idea of, well, maybe the sim that used to live here before they left on like very sudden circumstances, maybe when they was on the run, they passed away, and their ghost decided to come back here, and maybe their ghost of the sim that used to live here is like haunting this treehouse. And so you can go inside of it, you can play around with all their old objects, all their old stuff, but it comes at a price, because your sims, yeah, they're going to be absolutely petrified. But yeah, if you want to, feel free to delete them. I place them down in different areas of the build, but I like it for the gameplay aesthetics, and it also just, it made building it really fun. I just didn't want to limit it just because of different emotions, and so I thought, well, I'll tell you about the different emotions that kind of come with them objects, and if you decide that you want to have that kind of gameplay, then yeah, it's there for you. But just in front of the cauldron, I also end up placing down a seance table. So this is something that your sims can use to basically communicate with the dead. Now, going back to when I was building this treehouse, I was really trying to incorporate objects and things that your sims won't typically have in their day-to-day apartment or their like suburban family home. Like, I wanted there to be stuff inside of this treehouse that gives your sim a purpose to come here, because the seance table, it's got gameplay attached to it. You know, like I said, your sims can communicate with the dead. Sometimes you have these little like ghosty spirits floating around. How many people realistically have this in their front room? I'm saying this, I'm actually one to talk. If you follow me on Instagram, that is a shameless plug, but if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen that last night I posted a story. I've recently started a new sim. I mean, this is not relevant really to this build, so I will make this quick, but I started a new sim and she's a spellcaster. She lives in the world of Penfield and Bagley. She's got a cat, but last night I got her to use a seance table, and the cat, bless its little heart, looked absolutely petrified in the background. I posted an Instagram story of it because I thought it was really funny. And then shortly after, I got a pop-up saying Sabina is acting a bit paranoid. Do you want to give it this trait? It's like, it's a cat. I didn't know cats could be paranoid, but apparently they can be. But yeah, that is not relevant to the story. Other than that, how many sims realistically do you have to have a seance table in their front room? Like, not that many. And so I thought, well, for gameplay purposes, again, to give you a little bit of a prompt to visit this treehouse, give you a little bit of purpose, why not place it down? And so yeah, I placed down a table that your sims, if they want to, can talk to their dead relatives or random relatives, or maybe the sim that used to live in this house. Like I said, I imagine that maybe the sim that did used to live here haunts it, and so maybe your sim, who is an explorer, could come here and they could talk to the sim through the seance table. I'm imagining this sim would probably, you know, slam the doors. Not like there's that many. There is one upstairs to the bathroom, but maybe this sim who is a ghost would slam the doors, or maybe make things move, or like make the fridge jump up and down. You know, sometimes when a ghost goes into a fridge and it makes it go all like jiggly. I don't know how else to put it, but maybe the sim that used to live here does that. But then maybe over time, your sim can like form some sort of friendship with them. And maybe actually, I've just had this idea and now I want to do it myself, and I probably will this evening. But what about if your sim, who is an explorer, finally talks to this ghost and finally forms some sort of friendship, and then the ghost is able to tell your sim about what happened to them? Maybe they've got some sort of unfinished business, and maybe your sim could like pretend to finish off this business for them, or maybe the ghost sim could tell your sim about the other secret worlds that we've got in the Sims 4, because the Sylvan Glade isn't the only secret world in the game. We've got 4 in total. We've got this one, we've got one in the world of Oasis Springs, which is called Forgotten Grotto. I nearly said Forgotten Hollow then, but that's the vampire world. But we've got one in Oasis Springs, and then we've got another 2 that came from, one is from the Get to Work DLC, and then one is from the Outdoor Retreat DLC. But maybe the ghost sim can tell your sim about all the other different secret worlds, and then it kind of gives them a little bit of a purpose to visit them. I've also just realised that this is unironically kind of in line with the new expansion pack that comes out next week. I don't know if you know about it, but we're getting a new EP. It's called the Life and Death expansion pack, and it's basically about life and death, from my understanding. There is some sort of like bucket list situation where your sims can have a bucket list, I believe, when they're alive, and then also when they pass away, and you can kind of like tick off things on this list, and it's meant to be like randomly generated things that kind of like prompt you to do different gameplay. Very excited for that. I will say that and the wheel system that we're meant to be getting from this EP are the things I'm mostly looking forward to. But I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't know too much else about this new expansion pack. I've watched the gameplay trailer and then the reveal trailer for this new EP, and there was a live stream from the Sims team yesterday, kind of like showing off the gameplay and like some of the new EP features. But it sounds really bad, but I didn't watch it on purpose because I kind of want to experience that myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like getting my hands on the pack and going through the build and buy in my own time, and discovering the gameplay through my own gameplay instead of watching someone else to do it. It sounds terrible, but yeah, I haven't watched the live stream, and so if you're worried about spoilers, don't worry, I ain't got any for you. But either way, moving over from that, as you can see, I have now moved over into this little almost like sitting room situation. So in here there is a love seat sofa that your sims can sit down on, and then there is also a fireplace, and then also an art easel. Now, if I'm being honest, this room took me so long to figure out. I think this was like my 3rd or potentially even 4th attempt of trying to figure out how I was going to decorate this room, because when I initially came in, I started off furnishing. I started off by the front door, which is technically in this room, but I just didn't know how I was going to decorate it, and so I thought, you know what, I'll come back to it when I've got a better idea and how I decorated the rest of the build. But as you would have seen from like the kitchen and then from the cauldron area with the seance table and stuff, it was very overgrown. But the only reason why it was overgrown is because the windows that the ivy was coming out of, they didn't have any glass in. And so when it came around to decorating the lounge room, I didn't have any of them windows. And then I was really struggling because I didn't want to make it look too different from the rest of the inside of this treehouse. It was a whole faff. But in the end, like I said, it ends up being a little love seat that your Sims can sit on. Also ends up being a fireplace. If your Sims are maybe a little bit cold, they can warm themselves up. And then also, for purely gameplay purposes, I placed down an art easel as well. I feel like typically a lot of people do have art easels in their Sims builds, and they did really try and focus on things that your Sims might not typically have in their houses, but I just didn't know what else to put in there, and so yeah, I just slung a art easel in the corner. I then also placed down like random buckets, and I placed down some ivy roots onto the floor, but I didn't go over the top like I have over here actually, because now you can see I've now moved on into the upstairs first room, which is the bathroom, and in here it's very overgrown, but would you believe it? This is all functional. This still works. So I placed down this bathtub that we got from the Sims 4 base game. I think it's one that your Sims are meant to be able to make from the woodworking table. But I also placed down a handmade toilet, which again, I think your Sims can make that at the woodworking table, I believe anyway. Then I also placed down this sink that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack. Now your Sims can't make it, but I mean, to me, it kind of aligns with the same like wood as what I use for the bathtub and then also the toilet. And so to me, even though your Sims can just regularly buy that sink from the Build and Buy category, in my mind, the Sim that used to live here also made that sink. But in the bathroom as well, I scattered about loads of different vines. I placed down loads of different ivy. I've also been plopping down some little candles in various different areas of the build. Now I've used some debug ones that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, and also ones that we got from the Paranormal Stuff pack as well. The Paranormal ones, when I place them down, they glow like greeny blue kind of colour, whereas the Eco Lifestyle one is just kind of like a regular candle kind of colour. But I will say, if ever you do get your Sims to light the candles, the ones that we got from the Paranormal Stuff pack, the room is going to turn very green. But I kind of like it because, again, going in with like the whole haunted, oogly boogly, bit scary in there kind of idea. And so, yeah, your Sims can actually light them little Paranormal Stuff pack candles. But either way, as you can see, I've now moved over into the last room in this build, which is the bedroom. Again, I really struggled with this room because I didn't know how I was going to do it. Because in this room, there was only one window that didn't have any glass in. The ones that I've used are from the Jungle Adventure game pack. I'm not sure if I said that or not, but the ones with the little open shutters, they are from, yeah, the Jungle Adventure EP. And where they don't have any glass, I just thought it's a perfect opportunity to have like ivy coming out from the outside and then kind of like growing into the inside. But then for like realism purposes, I then didn't want to have the same ivy and the same vines coming out of window that's got glass in, because how's that gonna work? Like realistically, ivy can't grow through glass. And so when it came around to figuring out how I was gonna, yeah, again do this room, I really struggled because I still wanted it to be in theme with the rest of the treehouse, but I didn't want to place down purposely open windows just for the sake of the ivy. And so I tried to grow the ivy around the room as I decorated, which sounds really silly, but you would have seen I started off by where your Sims would have come up the staircase or the little ladder. There's no technical staircase here. It's just one of the ladders that we got in the game, because this treehouse, again, it's only 20 by 15, I was limited for space, but your Sims would come up the ladder, and that's where one of the open windows is, and I placed down the ivy and the vines there. But then as I go through and as I start placing down like the bed, I place down a little wardrobe, I place down a little tent that maybe the explorer or maybe your Sim has like pitched up in this haunted treehouse or something over time. But as I start placing down all these different objects and I kind of get the footing of where they're going to sit in the room, I then start to bring in the ivy around them. But it was a little bit of a slow process. But in this room as well, as you can see, I placed down a sofa into kind of like the tower in this room. I also placed down the costume trunk, so if your Sims want to play dress up with their partner, they can do. And then I also placed down a card game that your Sims can do. It's like a woohoo card game. Again, with the art easel, but maybe not as likely. But the woohoo card game is an easy object that you can just place down into any house and it not be strange, like a seance table or like the wishing well. But it was more so just gives your Sims something else to do. I just really wanted this treehouse to be filled with so much gameplay and just so many different things that you can interact with. So yeah, like I said, it actually gives your Sims a purpose to travel to this little forgotten about treehouse. But other than that, I'm pretty much going to go around this room, finish it off by placing down some more vines hanging from the ceiling, and also place down a few more ivy clumps, but that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.